What is up, everybody? Shawn Tubbs here. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out the Seymour Duncan POWERSTAGE 200 Pedalboard Amplifier. There it is right there. It's a 200 watt solid state amplifier that fits on your pedalboard that's capable of driving a variety of cabinets. Before we get into the specs, who is this for? Well, to me, it's definitely for the guy that needs to get to the gig. He or she doesn't want to take an amp head. They don't want to take their combo amp. They know there's cabs on site. They just want to take their pedal board, their guitar, and this either mounted to the pedal board or in their gig bag or in their backpack, show up to the gig, plug in, get up sounds that they know are going to be great, and do the gig. That's one application. Now I know that this is also going to be great for anybody that's into modelers. This is definitely a modeler's friend. Thirdly, the thing that came to mind, because I know quite a few players that are like this, they just don't like digital. They may have digital somethings like maybe a delay that's a simple digital delay or reverb on their pedal board, but they choose not to use any digital modeling. They don't know what IRs are. They don't know what that even stands for. They don't want to mess with that. This is a really great analog solution for those people. So it's a pretty versatile product in application. So as I mentioned, 200 watts, clean solid state power. Let's get right into the controls on the top. On the left, you've got your headphone control or output. For if you want to use headphones along with the cab sim, you can. You have a full complement as far as your EQ goes. You have bass, mid, treble, and presence. All four of those potentiometers do have center detents, so you can cut or boost. The large control is the level control, so that's the output. I did find that that was really linear as I turned it up and down. There's a couple switches at the top, and those apply to your phone and balanced output. So you have a cab sim that you can turn on or off. So if you want to use phones with a cab sim, you can. If you want to run direct and have a cab sim for recording, you can certainly do that, but you can also bypass it, which is what that switch is for, if you want to use your own IRs within your DAW. And then you also have an EQ bypass, which I'm assuming is for those that are going to be using modelers and what have you, where you just want a completely flat response as far as EQ goes. On the back, you've got an aux in, which would apply to using, if you want to practice to tracks or whatever on phones, that's available. You have your guitar's input, you have your headphone output, you have an XLR balanced out, which is great. I'm always happy when I see an actual XLR output. And then, of course, you've got your speaker outs to drive various cabinets. And, of course, your on-off power switch and your AC input. On the front of it, there is a fan. It makes a little bit of noise, but it didn't bother me. So the way I'm going to demo this is not going to be so much focused on modelers or even preamp style pedals. What I wanted to check out with this was, can I take my existing pedal board with the pedals that are on it, plug into this, and get sounds that I would find usable. And I really felt like I got great results with this. It felt good. It wasn't a major struggle at all to get good sounds out of my pedal board. I did have to obviously do things a little bit differently with my drive pedals as far as where I kept tone controls and what have you. But for the most part, I was really pleased with the results. So without further ado, let's check out the Seymour Duncan POWERSTAGE 200. Okay, let's check out the POWERSTAGE 200. The way we're going to listen to this is with my 2x12 cabinet. It's a Bogner closeback 2x12 cab. It's the cab I use all the time. It's loaded with Selly Vintage 30 speakers, and I'm using my usual Royer R121 and Shure SM57 mic combination, and that is in a separate room. And I've got it cranking pretty loud. So let's just start with the POWERSTAGE by itself before we start hitting it with pedals and what have you. This is how I had it dialed pretty much for that opening track. I am using a little more bass because I'm playing by myself now, so it sounds cool. In the track, I actually backed the bass off so that everything would sit better. But here's how the POWERSTAGE sounds as just a clean amplifier. So it's a really efficient clean. It will not break up for the most part. I saw just a little bit of power amp clip, but I didn't hear it audibly, and it's incredibly loud. I did find that as I turn the level down, it's actually relatively linear, and that the sound doesn't change that much as you start turning it down, which is great. It does take pedals well, but this is kind of the initial sound. So let's just let's turn some controls. I'm going to go ahead and let's just turn the bass all the way down. Here's all the way up. So it can get really huge. You know, if you're going to play at like bedroom levels, it's nice to have that active of a bass control because you can get those room sympathetics at really low volumes. Here's the mids. Off, all the way up. Pretty warm mid control, pretty active actually, and very useful when you're dialing it in for your specific pedals and guitars. I thought it sounded great. Here's a treble all the way off, treble all the way up. Pretty sweet treb circuit, doesn't seem to argue with different types of overdrives and distortions. And then of course, presence all the way off, all the way on. The presence control is fairly subtle. I liked it pretty much all the way up. You know, it's always going to vary, obviously, with the type of equipment that you're using. But it's nice to see a full tone stack. It makes it very, very useful for dialing it in, not only to your pedals in your cabinet, but also to the room you're in. Okay, so let's leave it set up there. I'm going to run just a little more bass, and I'll turn on an overdrive pedal. I'll turn on the one that I used actually for the track for the rhythm pass with both guitars, which is my Rocket Pedals Majestic. Those of you that watch my channel know that I'm kind of a fan of that overdrive pedal. So here's how that sounded. So I thought that held up really well. It still feels really good. So I used that for actually both passes that I think it was my LSL Strat, the black one, and my Shure Alt T, which was that gold guitar. Now it got like a really great, I had no problem getting like a blues tone out of it. And that's just a really low gain pedal that I have called a Blue Note. And then if I turn on like a reverb with it, it sounded really great. That's the tone that I used, or the sound, the pedal that I used with that gold Tuttle guitar in the neck position, the first solo. The second sound was my GTO. Now it's obviously with a different guitar, but you get the idea. It's a higher gain overdrive pedal. Now, these are all just basically kind of overdrive pedals. It did sound great. I have a pedal that's more of kind of an amp in the box pedal. It's by LPD. It's called the 74. Kind of more of a Marshall kick. Sounds great. I mean, it seems to take pedals really well. You know, obviously we can turn on some delay. The delay and reverb that you were hearing was actually off the cone. In other words, I didn't do it post in Pro Tools like I normally would. It's actually off of the cone. So that's just my Strymon timeline for delays, and I used my Flint for reverbs. One thing I did do that I should have talked about when I was doing the clean tone is for that 12-string pass and the detuned Duesenberg pass, I did turn on a compressor. That compressor is by Shure. It's called the Apogee Comp, and I used that to not only add a little bit of compression, but to add some top end, just to get it to sit in the track better. That's with it. Here's without it. So it boosts a little bit, and it adds a little bit of top end. And I shut it off for the solo passes, but I could have just left it on. Still sounds great, but that's, you know, that's to each his own, and it depends on the cabinet you're using, the guitar you have, the type of sounds you want. But I didn't find any issues in achieving what I was hoping I could achieve, which was to just be able to take my existing pedal board without really changing anything, and run it into this and mic it up and get sounds that I liked. So let me do one more thing. I want you guys to hear the XLR out so you can hear the cab sim. So give me just a second. Okay, so just really quickly, let's listen to the XLR out with the cab sim. I've got everything dialed flat right now, so I'm just going to kind of go along with it. I'm actually discovering this along with you guys. I'm running it direct into my DAW, into my Apogee Quartet. So that's the EQ flat. You can bypass the EQ, but right now I've got it on. I'm just going to turn on a straight ahead kind of plexi in a box pedal, the one I turned on before, the LPD 74. See what that sounds like. You can see how active that mid is. So the direct line in sounds really good. I would think you could use both together if you were in a live setting and you wanted to run you know, one sends to front of house and then have your cabinet, or even be sending the cab sim send as well as your cabinet mic'd up to front of house. So that is the Seymour Duncan POWERSTAGE 200. If you've got any further questions about it, visit the Seymour Duncan site. And as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next time.